The bridge of the UESS Horizon was quiet except for the steady hum of engines. Captain Dae-Won Kim sat in his chair, watching the stars drift past on the main screen. His ship had been patrolling the Kelnar sector for 3 months now, and nothing interesting had happened. Just the usual routine checks and long, boring hours in space. Dae-Won was a practical man. He had served in Earth's military for 15 years before getting this assignment. The Galactic Assembly, that big group of alien civilizations, had finally let humans join 3 years ago, but nobody really took humanity seriously. Earth was small. Earth was weak. Earth was new. The other species looked down on them like children playing with toys. He did not care much about politics. His job was simple: keep his crew safe and follow orders. Today's orders were the same as yesterday's: patrol this empty sector and make sure nothing bad happened. Then the console beeped. Lieutenant Tae-Hyun Park, the head of security, looked up from his station. His face was serious as always. Tae-Hyun did not trust aliens. He thought humans should handle their own problems without help from creatures they barely understood. "Captain, I'm picking up a signal," Tae-Hyun said. "It's weak, coming from inside that nebula." Dae-Won leaned forward. The nebula was a massive cloud of gas and dust that sensors could barely see through. Most ships avoided it. "Too dangerous, too unpredictable. Can you identify it?" he asked. Tae-Hyun worked his controls, frowning. "It's encrypted. Really complicated encryption. I can't break it. But the pattern, Captain, I think it might be Thalon." Everyone on the bridge went quiet. The Thalon were legendary, ancient, powerful. They built most of the technology that the Galactic Assembly used. They were so advanced that other species called them the architects. But they kept to themselves. They rarely spoke to anyone, and they definitely did not talk to humans. "A Thalon ship?" Dae-Won said slowly. "Out here? If it is them, they're in trouble," Tae-Hyun replied. "That signal is a distress call." "I'm sure of it." Dae-Won thought about it. Protocol said they should report this to Earth Command and wait for orders. But that would take hours. Maybe days. If someone was dying in that nebula, they did not have days. He made his decision. "Set a course for the signal," he ordered. "We're going in." Tae-Hyun looked at him with surprise. "Captain, we don't know what's in there." "It could be a trap." "Maybe," Dae-Won said. "But if someone is calling for help, we answer." "That's what we do." The horizon turned and pushed into the nebula. The ship shook as it moved through the thick clouds of gas. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Sensors flickered and gave confusing readings. It felt like flying blind. After 20 minutes of careful navigation, they found it, a ship. But not just any ship. It was massive, sleek, and beautiful in a way that human vessels were not. The hull was dark silver and covered in patterns that seemed to glow faintly. Even damaged and drifting, it looked more advanced than anything Dae-Won had ever seen. And it was dying. Huge gashes ran along its side. Parts of the hull were torn open. Energy leaked from broken conduits like blood from a wound. The ship spun slowly, completely powerless. "What happened to them?" whispered Engineer So-Ra Choi. She stood near the back of the bridge, her eyes wide as she stared at the wreckage. "Scanning for life signs," said Dr. Hana Yoon from the medical station. Hana was the ship's chief doctor and xenobiologist. She knew more about alien biology than anyone else on the crew. "I'm detecting life, but the readings are weak. They don't have much time. Can we dock with them?" Dae-Won asked. So-Ra studied her screens. "Their docking port is damaged, but I can jury-rig something. Give me 10 minutes. "Do it," Dae-Won said. While So-Ra worked, Dae-Won opened a communication channel. He tried every frequency he could think of. Finally, a response came through. It was audio only, and the voice was weak and strange. The words were spoken in a language Dae-Won did not understand, but the tone was clear. Whoever was speaking was in pain. The computer tried to translate. After a few seconds, text appeared on the screen. "No assistance required. Leave immediately." Dae-Won blinked. "They're refusing help?" Hana shook her head. "Pride, maybe. Or protocol. Some species would rather die than accept help from those they consider inferior." Dae-Won clenched his jaw. He did not care about pride. People were dying. "Connect us anyway," he said. "We're going over there." So-Ra managed to attach a temporary docking tunnel between the two ships. Dae-Won, Hana, Tae-Hyun, and a small team put on environmental suits and crossed over. The inside of the Thalon ship was just as impressive as the outside. Everything was smooth and elegant, but the damage was terrible. Sparks flew from broken panels. The air was thin and cold. Emergency lights flickered. They found the crew in what looked like a command center. There were 5 Thalan. They were tall and slender, with pale skin that almost seemed to glow. Their eyes were large and dark. They wore uniforms that looked both practical and ceremonial. One of them, clearly the leader, stood despite obvious injuries. His breathing was labored. He looked at Daewon with something between anger and disbelief. "You should not be here," the Thalan said in broken English. "We do not need your help." Daewon looked around. One Thalan was unconscious on the floor. 2 others were barely standing. The ship was falling apart. "With respect," Daewon said, "I think you do." Before the Thalan could argue, another one collapsed. Hana rushed forward immediately, her medical scanner already working. The Thalan leader tried to stop her, but he was too weak. Hana ignored him and started treatment. "Tae-hyun, get these people back to our ship," Daewon ordered. "Sora, can you stabilize their reactor?" Sora had followed them over and was already looking at the ship's systems. Her face was pale. "Captain, their reactor is going critical. If it blows, both our ships are gone. Can you stop it?" She hesitated. "I don't know. Their technology is so far ahead of ours, but maybe. If I improvise." "Then improvise," Daewon said. "We're not leaving anyone to die." The next hour was chaos. Hana worked desperately to keep the injured Thalan alive, using equipment and techniques she had only read about in theory. Tae-hyun and his team evacuated the survivors, carrying them through the docking tunnel even as they protested weakly. And Sora, brilliant Sora, tore apart mining equipment from the horizon and somehow used it to bypass the failing containment systems of the Thalan reactor. It should not have worked. By every reasonable measure, they should have failed. Human technology was primitive compared to the Thalan, but humans were also stubborn. They did not give up. They found ways. With 30 seconds to spare, Sora shut down the reactor cascade. The lights on the Thalan ship flickered and died completely, but it did not explode. Everyone was safe. Back on the horizon, Daewon found Hana in the medical bay. She looked exhausted. The injured Thalan, whose name was Talshir, was resting in a medical pod. "He would live. How is he?" Daewon asked. "Stable," Hana said. "I had to guess on half the treatments, but his biology responded. He'll recover." Daewon nodded and moved to the next room where the Thalan leader, Ambassador Velcorin, was sitting up. He looked better now, though still weak. His dark eyes studied Daewon with an expression that was hard to read. "You should have left us," Velcorin said quietly. "We refused your help." Daewon shrugged. "Maybe, but that's not how we do things. When someone needs help, you help them. It doesn't matter who they are or what they think of you." Velcorin was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke 2 words in heavily accented English. "Life debt." Daewon did not understand what that meant, but he could see the weight behind the words. "Just rest," he said. "We've called for a Thalan rescue ship. They'll be here in a few hours." Velcorin nodded slowly, but as Daewon turned to leave, the ambassador spoke again. "Captain, the Thalan do not forget." Daewon looked back. "Forget what?" "This kindness," Velcorin said. "When the time comes, humanity will not stand alone." Daewon did not know what to say to that, so he simply nodded and left. Later, when the Thalan rescue vessel arrived and took the survivors away, Daewon stood on the bridge and watched them go. Tae-hyun stood beside him. "Do you think they meant it?" Tae-hyun asked. "What the ambassador said?" Daewon shrugged. "Probably just words. A thank you, but deep down he wondered. There had been something in Velcorin's eyes. Something serious and binding. 3 years passed. For humanity, those years had been difficult. Earth had joined the Galactic Assembly with hope and optimism. But the reality was harsh. Nobody took humans seriously. They were the newest members, the weakest and the smallest. In a galaxy full of powerful civilizations, Earth was barely noticed. Ambassador Jiwon Lee stood in the Grand Hall of the Galactic Assembly and felt very small. The hall was enormous, built to accommodate dozens of different species. Some delegates floated in special containers. Others towered 3 meters tall. The architecture was beautiful but cold, made from materials that did not exist on Earth. Jiwon had been Earth's chief diplomat for 2 years now. She had fought hard for humanity's voice to be heard. But fighting was exhausting when nobody wanted to listen. Today was worse than usual. Today, the Dominion Coalition had made their demand. The coalition was a group of militaristic species led by the Vorkan Empire. The Vorkan were powerful, aggressive, and expanding their territory constantly. Warlord Krathak, their leader, sat on his platform like a king on a throne. He was massive, covered in dark scales with eyes that glowed red. When he spoke, his voice rumbled through the hall. "The minor species must understand their place," Krathak declared. "Resource-rich systems belong to those strong enough to defend them. The coalition requires control of 17 systems currently occupied by weaker civilizations. This includes the human colony of New Sol." Ji-Wan felt her heart sink. New Sol was humanity's newest colony. 10,000 people lived there. The planet was rich in rare minerals that Earth desperately needed for building faster ships. Losing New Sol would be a disaster. She stood up. Her voice felt small in the huge chamber, but she kept it steady. "The colony of New Sol was established legally according to assembly law," Ji-Wan said. "We filed all the proper documentation. We harmed no one. The people living there are civilians, families, children. You cannot simply take it from us." Krathak looked at her the way someone might look at an insect. "Laws are written by the strong for the strong human. Your species lacks the power to enforce your claims. Surrender the colony peacefully or we will take it by force." Ji-Wan looked around the hall, desperate for support. Other delegates avoided her eyes. The major powers said nothing. They did not want to anger the coalition. They did not care about Earth. Only one delegation sat quietly and watched. The Thalan. Ambassador Velkorin was there, older now but still imposing. His dark eyes met Ji-Wan's for just a moment. Then he looked away. Ji-Wan felt abandoned. She had heard stories about the Thalan rescue 3 years ago, Captain Kim's heroic act, the life debt, but nothing had come of it. The Thalan had sent a formal thank you message and then gone silent. Maybe it had all been empty words after all. She sat down, defeated. The next day, Earth sent its official response. They refused to surrender New Sol. Ji-Wan knew it was the right decision, but she also knew what would come next. And she was right. Within a week, the Vorkan fleet arrived at New Sol. 50 warships surrounded the planet. They did not attack. They did not need to. They simply blocked everything. No supply ships could get through. No messages could leave. The colony was cut off completely. On Earth, the government met in emergency sessions. Admiral Daewon Kim, now promoted after his rescue of the Thalan, sat in those meetings. His hair was grayer now, and his face showed the weight of responsibility. He listened as politicians argued about what to do. Some wanted to surrender. 10,000 lives were not worth a war they could not win. Others wanted to fight. Surrendering would show weakness. It would invite more aggression. Admiral Kim said nothing during most of the debate. Finally, the president asked him directly, "Admiral, what is your assessment? Can we break the blockade?" Daewon took a breath. "No, sir. We have 12 ships capable of deep space combat. They have 50, and each of their ships is more advanced than ours. If we attack, we will lose. All of our ships will be destroyed and the colony will still be captured. So you recommend surrender?" Daewon looked at the president with hard eyes. "I recommend fighting anyway. Those are our people on New Sol. If we abandon them now, we lose something more important than ships or colonies. We lose who we are." The room went silent. Everyone knew what he was saying. This was a suicide mission, but it was the right thing to do. The president nodded slowly. "Prepare the fleet, Admiral. We go to war." Back at the Galactic Assembly, another emergency session was called. This time the hall was packed. Everyone knew that if the Vorkan attacked Earth's fleet, it would be the first major military action in the Assembly in decades. Some species were excited. Others were worried. Most were simply curious to see what would happen. Ji-Wan made one last desperate speech. She talked about justice. She talked about the founding principles of the Assembly. She talked about protecting the weak from the strong. Her words were passionate and sincere. Nobody cared. As she sat down feeling hopeless, a voice spoke from the Thalan section. It was quiet but clear. Everyone in the hall heard it. The Dominion Coalition's actions violate the founding principles of this assembly. The hall erupted in whispers. The Thalan rarely spoke in assembly sessions. They observed. They advised when asked. But they never took sides in political disputes. Ambassador Velkorin stood. He was old now, but his presence commanded respect. When he spoke again, his voice was firm. "If the strong devour the weak without consequence, then this council has no purpose. The human colony was established legally. The blockade is an act of aggression. This must stop. Warlord Krathak glared at him. The Thalan have remained neutral for centuries. Why do you suddenly care about the humans? Velkorin met his gaze without fear. Because 3 years ago humans risked their lives to save mine. They owed me nothing. They gained nothing from helping me, but they did it anyway because it was right. I will not watch them be destroyed for that virtue. The hall was completely silent now. This was unprecedented. The Thalan were taking a side, and they were taking humanity's side. Krathak's eyes blazed with anger, but he said nothing more. The session ended in chaos. Delegates argued and shouted. The balance of power was shifting, and nobody knew what would happen next. That night, Admiral Kim was preparing his fleet to depart when he received a strange message. It came through a secure channel. The sender was listed as unknown. There was no video, just text, and the text was in Thalan script. Day-1 did not read Thalan, but the computer translated it. The message was short. The debt will be paid. He stared at those words for a long time. Then he forwarded the message to Earth Command and continued preparing for battle. Dr. Hana Yoon, now Earth's chief advisor on alien biology and culture, saw the message too. She understood what it meant better than most. The Thalan concept of life debt was sacred. It was not just a thank you. It was a binding oath. She called Day-1 immediately. They're going to help us. Maybe, Day-1 said. Or maybe it's just words again. No, Hana insisted. I've studied their culture. When a Thalan says the debt will be paid, they mean it. Something is going to happen. Day-1 wanted to believe her, but he had been a soldier too long to rely on hope. He trusted what he could see, his ships, his crew, and his own determination. Earth's fleet departed 3 days later. 12 ships against 50. It was not enough. Everyone knew it. But they went anyway. The journey to New Sol took a week. During that time, Day-1 walked through his flagship and talked to his crew. They were scared. Many of them were very young, but they were also proud. They knew they were doing something important. Lieutenant Taehyun Park, now a commander, found Day-1 on the bridge late one night. Taehyun still did not trust aliens much, but he trusted his captain. Do you really think the Thalan will help us? He asked. Day-1 shrugged. I don't know. But it doesn't matter. We're going to do this either way. Taehyun smiled slightly. Good. I wouldn't want to miss this fight. When they finally arrived at New Sol, the Vorkan fleet was waiting. 50 massive warships arranged in perfect formation. They looked like monsters in the darkness of space. Behind them, the planet New Sol hung like a small blue jewel. Day-1 ordered his fleet into attack formation. It was a formation designed for maximum damage, even if it meant certain death. If they were going to lose, they would make the Vorkan remember this fight. His hand hovered over the order to attack. This was it, the moment that would decide everything. Then the sensors started screaming. Something massive had just emerged from hyperspace. No, not something. Multiple somethings. The sensor officer's voice was shaking as he reported. Captain, we have new contacts. Multiple ships. Very large. There. Oh my God. On the main screen, the Thalan fleet appeared. There were 20 of them. Each ship was enormous, dwarfing even the largest Vorkan vessel. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time, covered in that same silver hull with glowing patterns. These were not diplomatic ships. These were weapons, war machines that had not been seen in active service for over a century, and they were positioning themselves between Earth's fleet and the Vorkan blockade. The bridge of Day-1's ship was completely silent. Nobody could believe what they were seeing. Then a transmission came through. It was from the lead Thalan ship. The voice was familiar. It was Velkorin. Admiral Kim, the Thalan said. 3 years ago, humanity saved Thalan lives when they had no obligation to do so. The Thalan do not forget. This blockade ends now. Day-1 could not speak. He tried, but no words came out. After a moment, he simply whispered, "Thank you." Around him, his crew erupted in cheers. People were crying and laughing at the same time. They had come here to die. Now they might actually live. On the other side of the battlefield, the Vorkan fleet scrambled to respond. This changed everything. The standoff at New Sol was unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. Two powerful forces faced each other across the darkness of space. On one side, the Vorkan fleet with its 50 warships. On the other, the legendary Thalan battle fleet. And caught between them, 12 small human ships that had come here expecting to die. Admiral Daewon Kim stood on his bridge, trying to process what was happening. The Thalan ships were massive. Each one looked like it could destroy his entire fleet single-handedly. Their weapon systems were active, but they had not fired. They were simply there, blocking the Vorkan from reaching the human colony. A message came through on the command channel. It was broadcast openly so that everyone could hear. The Vorkan, the humans, even the terrified colonists on New Sol below. The voice belonged to Warlord Krathak, and he sounded furious. Ambassador Velkorin, explain yourself. The Thalan have remained neutral for over 1,000 years. Why do you interfere in this matter? There was a pause. Then Velkorin's voice came through, calm and measured, but there was steel underneath those words. 3 years ago I was dying. My crew was dying. Our ship was destroyed by a spatial anomaly that your coalition's weapons testing created. We sent a distress call knowing no one would answer. Knowing we would die alone, Daewon listened, surprised. He had not known about the weapons testing. The Thalan had never mentioned it, Velkorin continued. But someone did answer. A human ship. The UESS Horizon. They had no obligation to help us. They gained nothing from saving us. Their technology was primitive compared to ours. They should have failed, but they did not. They risked their lives because it was the right thing to do. On Earth, in the assembly hall, and on ships across the galaxy, people were listening to this broadcast. Ji-Won Lee sat in an emergency assembly session with tears in her eyes. This was really happening. The Thalan do not forget kindness, Warlord, Velkorin said. We do not forget honor. And we will not stand by while those who showed us mercy are destroyed for that virtue. The blockade ends now. Withdraw your fleet. Krathak's response was immediate and angry. You dare threaten the Dominion coalition? Your ships are legendary, yes. But you are 20 against 50. Even the mighty Thalan cannot win those odds. Perhaps, Velkorin replied. But we will try. And even if we fall, the galaxy will know why. They will know that the Thalan chose honor over power, that we stood with the weak against the strong, that we kept our word. Can you say the same? The words hung in the silence of space. Everyone listening knew what this meant. The Thalan were willing to die for humanity, for a species they barely knew, for people who had saved them once years ago. In the assembly hall, something remarkable happened. One of the smaller species, the Miralans, stood up. Their delegate spoke in a trembling voice. The Dominion coalition has threatened my people too. They demanded our water worlds. We were too afraid to refuse. But if the Thalan are willing to fight for honor, then perhaps we should find our courage as well. I support the humans. I support ending this blockade. Another delegate stood. Then another. Minor species that had been bullied and threatened by the coalition for years suddenly found their voices. The balance of power was shifting. Back at New Sol, Krathak was receiving reports about the assembly session. His own coalition members were starting to question him. Some of them did not want to fight the Thalan. The legendary architects had not gone to war in living memory. Nobody knew exactly what their weapons could do. The rumors were terrifying. One of Krathak's own advisors, a Vorkan counselor named Rathmir, spoke privately on a secure channel. Warlord, we should reconsider. This conflict is not worth it. If we fight the Thalan and lose, our entire empire will be weakened. Other species will see us as vulnerable. Krathak wanted to refuse. He wanted to attack. His pride demanded it. But he was also a practical warrior. Rathmir was right. Fighting the Thalan was too dangerous. And for what? One small human colony. It was not worth the risk. He made his decision. All ships, Krathak ordered. Withdraw from New Sol. We are returning to Coalition space. His fleet began to pull back. Slowly at first, then faster. Within an hour, the Vorkan were gone. The blockade was over. On Daewon's ship, the crew exploded in celebration. People were hugging each other. Some were crying. They had won. They had actually won, not through fighting, but through friendship. Daewon sat in his chair, overwhelmed. Commander Taehyun Park came over and put a hand on his shoulder. We saved them 3 years ago, Taehyun said quietly. And today they saved us. I guess I was wrong about aliens. Daewon smiled. Some aliens anyway. A private message came through. It was from Velkorin, requesting permission to come aboard the human flagship. Daewon granted it immediately. An hour later, a Thalan shuttle docked with the USS Defiance. Ambassador Velkorin came aboard with a small escort. He looked older than Day One remembered, but his presence was still powerful. They met in a private conference room. Day One did not know what to say at first. "How do you thank someone who just saved your entire species?" Velcorin spoke first. "Admiral Kim, you look well." "Ambassador," Day One said. "I thank you. I do not have better words. You saved us. You saved everyone on that planet below. 10,000 people are alive because of you." Velcorin shook his head slightly. "No, Admiral. You saved us first. The debt is now paid. But I must tell you something important. What happened here today will have consequences." Day One felt a chill. "What kind of consequences?" "The Thalan have remained neutral in galactic affairs for over a millennium," Velcorin explained. "We advise, we build. We observe. But we do not take sides. Until today. By defending humanity, we have made enemies. The Coalition will not forget this. Neither will other powers who preferred the old balance." "I am sorry," Day One said. "I never meant for you to risk so much." "Do not apologize," Velcorin said firmly. "We chose this freely. When you saved my life, you showed us something we had forgotten. The Thalan became so focused on being powerful that we forgot how to be good. You reminded us, and for that we are grateful." He paused, then continued more seriously. "But understand this, Admiral. From this day forward, humanity's fate and ours are connected. If you are attacked, we will defend you. If you go to war, we will stand beside you. This is both a gift and a burden. Use it wisely." Day One nodded slowly. "What should we do?" "Be strong," Velcorin said. "Build your fleets. Train your people. The Vorkan withdrew today. But Warlord Krathak is not a forgiving creature. He will remember this humiliation. Eventually, he will want revenge. Then we will be ready," Day One promised. Velcorin smiled slightly. It was the first time Day One had ever seen a Thalan smile. "I believe you will be, Admiral. Humans are stubborn. That is both your weakness and your strength." Before leaving, Velcorin said one more thing. "We will send technical advisors to Earth. Your scientists will learn from ours. Your ships will become stronger. We cannot give you everything, but we can help you catch up. The galaxy is changing, Admiral, and humanity will be part of that change." After the Thalan left, Day One returned to his bridge. His crew was still celebrating, but he could not fully join them. Velcorin's warnings echoed in his mind. This was not over. It was only beginning. Dr. Hana Yoon contacted him from Earth. She had been watching everything unfold. Her face on the screen was happy but also worried. "You did it, Day One," she said. "You saved them." "We did," he corrected. "All of us. But Hana, I think this is just the start. The Vorkan will come back, and next time they will be prepared." Hana nodded. "Then we prepare too. Earth has time now. Time to build. Time to learn. The Thalan gave us a chance. We cannot waste it." In the following weeks, news of what happened at New Sol spread across the galaxy. Humans went from being ignored to being noticed. Some species were inspired by their courage. Others were jealous of their alliance with the Thalan. And some, like the Vorkan, were planning revenge. On Earth, massive construction projects began. New shipyards were built. Thalan advisors arrived and started teaching human engineers about advanced propulsion and weapon systems. The military expanded. Young people signed up in record numbers, inspired by Admiral Kim's stand at New Sol. But in the dark corners of Coalition space, Warlord Krathak was planning something terrible. He had been humiliated. His power had been questioned. Some of his own Coalition members were beginning to doubt him. He would not let that stand. In a secret facility, his scientists were working on a weapon, something powerful enough to change everything, something that even the Thalan would fear. He called it the Void Breaker. And when it was ready, he would use it, not just against the humans, against anyone who dared to oppose him. The galaxy had chosen to stand with the weak. Krathak would teach them the price of that choice. 1 year after the standoff at New Sol, intelligence reports began reaching Earth Command. The report spoke of unusual energy signatures in Coalition space, of scientists being moved to hidden facilities, of something being built. Admiral Kim read these reports with growing concern. He forwarded them to the Thalan. Ambassador Velcorin's response was brief but troubling. "We are investigating. But Admiral, if the Vorkan are building what we suspect, the next conflict will not be a blockade. It will be war. Totalvar, prepare accordingly." Day One looked up at the stars from his office window on Earth. The debt had been paid. Humanity had been saved, but the cost of that salvation was still being calculated, and somewhere in the darkness a storm was gathering. The intelligence reports were getting worse. For 6 months, Earth Command had been tracking unusual activity in Coalition space, ships disappearing, scientists being relocated, strange energy readings from a facility deep in Vorkan territory. Something was being built. Something big. General Yu-Jin Kang sat in the war room looking at holographic displays showing everything they knew. She was Earth's chief military strategist, brilliant but constantly worried. Her job was to prepare for threats, and this threat was bigger than anything they had faced before. Admiral Daewon Kim was there too, along with Ambassador Ji-Won Lee and Dr. Hana Yoon. The Thalan had sent a representative as well, an engineer named Tal Shir. Not the same Tal Shir who had been rescued years ago. That one had returned to his homeworld. This was another engineer with the same name, common among the Thalan. General Kang pointed to the hologram. Our best analysis suggests the Vorkan are building a weapon of unprecedented power. We call it the Voidbreaker. It uses artificial singularity technology. Artificial singularities? Ji-Won asked. Like black holes? Exactly, Hana said quietly. A weapon that could consume entire planets. Maybe even stars. The room was silent. That kind of weapon violated every treaty in the galaxy. But Warlord Krathak did not care about treaties anymore. He had been humiliated at New Sol. His power within the coalition had weakened. He needed something to restore his authority. We need to destroy it before it becomes operational, Kang said. A direct military strike. Tal Shir, the Thalan engineer, shook his head. That would start a war. The coalition would have no choice but to retaliate. Even species that doubt Krathak would defend coalition territory against outside aggression. So what do we do? Ji-Won demanded. Wait for them to finish building it? Let them threaten the entire galaxy? Admiral Kim had been quiet, thinking. Now he spoke. A covert operation. We infiltrate the facility. We sabotage the weapon from inside. If we do it right, it looks like an accident. No proof of outside interference. Kang frowned. That is incredibly risky. Getting inside Vorkan space undetected would be nearly impossible. Nearly impossible is not the same as impossible, Daewon replied, and it is better than the alternatives. Either we try this or we wait for war. After hours of debate, they agreed. A joint task force would be formed. Human special forces, Thalan engineers and volunteers from other species who were secretly opposed to the coalition. The mission had a simple goal: disable the Voidbreaker before it could be used. Commander Taehyun Park was chosen to lead the human contingent. He was older now, with gray in his hair, but still sharp and deadly. When Daewon told him about the mission, Taehyun did not hesitate. I am in, he said simply. Engineer Sora Choi volunteered too. She was the best engineer humanity had, the same person who had saved the Thalan ship years ago. If anyone could figure out how to sabotage the Voidbreaker, it was her. The team trained for 2 months. They studied Vorkan security systems. They practiced infiltration techniques. They learned about singularity technology from Thalan scientists. Every detail was planned carefully, but no plan survives first contact with reality. They infiltrated Coalition space using a stolen cargo ship. The disguise worked. Vorkan patrols scanned them but let them pass. They reached the facility, a massive structure built into an asteroid in a remote system. Getting inside was harder. They had to disable security systems without triggering alarms. Sora worked her magic, bypassing electronic locks and fooling sensors. The team moved through dark corridors, avoiding guards and cameras. They reached the main chamber where the Voidbreaker was being built. It was enormous. A sphere of dark metal covered in complex machinery. Energy crackled around it. Just looking at it made Sora feel sick. This thing could destroy worlds. Can you disable it? Taehyun whispered. Sora studied the systems, her scanner feeding her information. Yes, but it will take time. 30 minutes at least. Then we hold this position, Taehyun ordered his team. Nobody gets through. Sora went to work. Her fingers flew over control panels. The Thalan engineer Tal Shir helped her. Together, they started the process of overloading the weapon's containment systems. If they did it right, the singularity would collapse inward and destroy the weapon safely. Then alarms started blaring. Contact, one of the soldiers shouted. They know we are here. Vorkan security forces poured into the chamber. Gunfire erupted. Taehyun's team fought back desperately. The humans had better training, but the Vorkan had numbers and heavier weapons. How long? Taehyun yelled over the noise. 10 minutes, Sora shouted back. Her hands were shaking, but she kept working. People started dying. One human soldier went down, then another. The Vorkan were pushing forward. Taehyun fought like a demon, but they were being overwhelmed. Then Tal Shir cried out in pain. A Vorkan blast had caught him in the chest. He collapsed. Sora tried to go to him, but he waved her away. Finish it, he gasped. Those were his last words. Sora felt tears on her face but kept working. She had to honor his sacrifice. She had to complete the mission. 5 minutes, she called out. Taehyun knew they did not have 5 minutes. The Vorkan were about to break through. He made a decision. He ordered his remaining team to fall back, to retreat to the ship and escape. What about you? One of them asked. I stay here. I give Sora the time she needs. Now go. They did not want to leave him, but they followed orders. Soldiers always follow orders in the end. Taehyun fought alone, holding the entrance to the chamber. He was a one-man wall of fire and determination. Every shot counted. Every second mattered. Done, Sora finally shouted. The overload was set. The Voidbreaker would destroy itself in 2 minutes. But she looked around and realized something terrible. Taehyun was wounded and could barely stand. The Vorkan had sealed the exits. She could escape through a maintenance shaft she had mapped, but there was not time to get him out too. Taehyun saw the calculation in her eyes. He smiled grimly. Go. Tell Admiral Kim we finished the mission. I cannot leave you, Sora said, her voice breaking. You have to. The team needs someone to make it out. To tell Earth what happened here, go, that is an order. Sora wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. With tears streaming down her face, she entered the maintenance shaft. Behind her, Taehyun turned back to face the Vorkan one last time. The facility exploded 90 seconds later. The singularity collapsed in on itself, taking the entire asteroid with it. The Voidbreaker was destroyed, but Taehyun Park and Talshir the engineer died with it. Sora made it back to the extraction point. The remaining team members got her aboard their ship and escaped just as Coalition reinforcements arrived. When they jumped to hyperspace, she finally broke down and cried. On Earth, Admiral Daewon Kim received the report. Mission successful. Voidbreaker destroyed. But the cost made his heart ache. Taehyun had been his friend for 20 years. They had served together, fought together, survived together, and now he was gone. Dr. Hanayun found him in his office, staring out at the night sky. She put a hand on his shoulder. He died a hero, she said softly. I know, Daewon replied, but I would rather have him alive. The destruction of the Voidbreaker sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Warlord Krathak was furious. His secret weapon was gone. His plans were ruined, and he knew exactly who to blame. He could not prove Earth was responsible. The destruction looked like an accident. But he knew. Everyone knew. Krathak called an emergency coalition meeting. He stood before the assembled delegates and made a declaration that changed everything. The humans and their Thalan allies have committed an act of war. They destroyed Coalition property. They killed Coalition citizens. This aggression cannot stand. The Dominion Coalition hereby declares war on Earth and the Thalan Assembly. The Galactic Assembly erupted in chaos. Some species protested. Others supported the Coalition. Many just tried to stay neutral and survive. Jiwon Lee stood and addressed the chamber. The Coalition built a weapon that violated every treaty we have. A weapon meant to terrorize the entire galaxy. We will not apologize for stopping that threat. But her words did not matter. War had been declared. The first galactic war in thousands of years had begun. On Earth, emergency mobilization began. Every ship was prepared for combat. Reserves were called up. Factories ran day and night building weapons and ammunition. Humanity knew what was coming and they were ready to face it. The Great Assembly War raged across 12 star systems. Fleets clashed in the darkness of space. Planets were blockaded. Space stations burned. It was chaos on a scale the galaxy had not seen in millennia. But something remarkable was happening. Species that had been silent for years were finding their courage. The minor civilizations, inspired by humanity's defiance and the Thalan's honor, were standing up to the Coalition. They joined Earth's alliance. They sent ships and soldiers. They refused to be intimidated anymore. The Coalition was powerful, but it was also stretched thin. Warlord Krathak had expected a quick victory. He thought fear would keep everyone in line. He was wrong. The strategic Kelnar sector became the site of the war's most important battle. If the Coalition captured it, they could cut off supply lines to the Allied fleet. If the Allies held it, they could push deeper into Coalition space. Admiral Daewon Kim commanded the defense from his flagship, the UESS Defiance. Around him were ships from Earth, from the Thalan Assembly, and from a dozen other species. They looked like a strange collection, all different sizes and designs, but they fought together like brothers. The Coalition fleet arrived in force, over 100 ships dark and threatening against the stars. Krathak himself commanded them from his massive dreadnought, the Retribution. The battle began at dawn, at least by Earth's clock. Space battles have no real dawn, but humans like to mark time that way. It makes them feel connected to home. The fighting was brutal. Ships exploded. Escape pods scattered across the battlefield. Daewon watched his tactical display and gave orders calmly, but inside he was screaming. So many people were dying. Commander Insuhan, a young and aggressive fleet commander who had once distrusted the Thalan, found himself surrounded. His small battle group was cut off from the main fleet. Coalition ships moved in for the kill. Han prepared to sell his life dearly. Then a Thalan battle group broke formation and charged into the trap. The Thalan captain, who had personally known Tal Shir, the engineer who died at the Voidbreaker facility, sent a simple message: "We fight together, or we die alone." Han felt something break inside him. All his doubts, all his suspicions about aliens, they just dissolved. These people were risking everything for him. For humanity! They were not strangers anymore. They were family. All ships, Han transmitted. Coordinate with the Thalan group. We counterattack on my mark. 3, 2, 1 mark. The combined force hit the Coalition ships like a hammer. The trap became a slaughter. Coalition vessels broke formation and retreated. Han's group had survived. More than that, they had won. News of the victory at Kelnar spread quickly. Coalition morale dropped. Inside the Dominion itself, voices of dissent grew louder. Councillor Rathmir, who had always opposed Krathak's warmongering, called for a vote of no confidence. Krathak crushed the rebellion brutally, but it cost him. Several species withdrew from the Coalition. Others reduced their military support. The great empire was crumbling from within. Desperate and furious, Krathak made a final gamble. He would strike at Earth itself, not at colonies or outposts, at humanity's homeworld. He would break their spirit and show the galaxy what happened to those who defied him. The Vorkan fleet, diminished but still dangerous, jumped into Earth's solar system. Every sensor on every ship screamed warnings. Earth's defense grid activated. Every available Allied ship rushed to intercept. The Battle of Earth began. Admiral Kim commanded the defense personally. Dr. Hana Yoon, now a senior government official, coordinated from the surface. She watched the battle unfold on massive screens in the war room, her heart in her throat. The fighting was desperate. The Vorkan pushed hard toward Earth's orbital defenses. If they broke through, millions would die. Maybe billions. Krathak's dreadnought, the Retribution, led the assault. It was enormous, covered in weapons and armor. As it pushed forward, its main cannon began charging. Sensors identified the target immediately, the planet's capital city, where billions of people lived. He is going to fire on the city, Hana whispered in horror. Daewon saw it too. The cannon would fire in 30 seconds. There was no time to evacuate. No time to get defenses in position. He looked at his tactical display and made a calculation. Then he made a decision. All ships, this is Admiral Kim. Continue the fight. Win this battle. Humanity must survive. His crew looked at him with confusion. Then understanding dawned on their faces. No, they silently begged. There has to be another way. But there was not another way. Daewon knew it. They knew it. It has been an honor, he said quietly. Now evacuate the bridge. Get to the escape pods. That is an order. His crew refused. Every single person stayed at their station. If their captain was staying, they would stay too. Daewon felt tears on his face, but he was smiling. These people, this crew, humanity itself. They were worth everything. The UESS Defiance turned and accelerated at full power toward the Retribution. The heavily damaged flagship became a missile, aimed directly at the dreadnought's cannon. Krathak saw it coming. He ordered evasive maneuvers, but the dreadnought was too big and slow. The Defiance smashed into the cannon array at maximum velocity. The impact was catastrophic. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the entire battlefield. On Earth, Hana watched the explosion through tears. Daewon was gone, the man who had saved the Thalen years ago, the man who had started all of this. Gone. But his sacrifice was not in vain. With Krathak dead and the Retribution destroyed, the Coalition fleet fell apart. Ships surrendered. Others retreated. The battle was over. Earth was saved. The war ended 3 months later. The Dominion Coalition dissolved completely. A new agreement was signed, the Galactic Accord. It guaranteed the rights of all species, big or small. It outlawed weapons of mass destruction. It created a real system of justice instead of rule by the strong. Humanity was recognized as a founding member of the new order. Not because they were powerful, but because they had shown the galaxy a better way. Through courage, through honor, through sacrifice, a memorial was built on New Sol, the colony where it all began. It honored everyone who had died in the war. Humans, Thalen, and countless others. Their names were carved into stone that would last forever. At the unveiling ceremony, Ambassador Velcorin spoke. He was very old now, his health failing, but his voice was still strong. Mankind never overlooks a favor, he said to the assembled crowd. When they repay it, their gratitude can shake worlds. We learned this truth not through words, but through sacrifice. Admiral Kim saved my life years ago, and in the end he gave his life to save billions. Let us ensure that lesson is never forgotten. The crowd was silent, remembering. Then they erupted in applause that seemed to shake the very ground. Years passed. The galaxy healed, new alliances formed. Old enemies became friends. The scars of war faded slowly but surely. In a ceremony on Earth, a young woman graduated from the Galactic Defense Academy. Her name was Ji-hee Kim. She was Admiral Kim's daughter, following in her father's footsteps. As she took her oath of service, she looked up at the stars. Her father was up there somewhere, along with Taehyun and Sora and Talshir and all the others who had given everything. She remembered her father's words, spoken to her when she was just a child. Never ignore a distress call. Never forget a kindness, and never ever abandon those who stand beside you. Those words had changed the galaxy. They had toppled an empire. They had forged friendships across species and worlds. They had proven that the strong do not always win. Sometimes the good win. Dr. Hana Yoon attended the ceremony. She was older now, her hair white, but her eyes were still sharp. She watched Ji-hai accept her commission and felt pride mixed with sadness. Daewon would have been so proud of his daughter. After the ceremony, Hana found Ji-hai and gave her something. A small data chip. What is this? Ji-hai asked. Your father's personal logs, Hana said. Everything he experienced. His thoughts, his fears, his hopes. He wanted you to have them when you joined the fleet. Ji-hai held the chip carefully like it was made of glass. Thank you. He would be proud of you, Hana said softly. We all are. You are going to do great things, Ji-hai, just like your father did. That night, Ji-hai sat in her quarters aboard her first ship assignment and played the logs. Her father's voice filled the room. He talked about his first days in space, about meeting the Thalen, about the choices he made and why he made them. One entry stood out. It was recorded just days before the Battle of Earth. Daewon spoke slowly, like he was choosing each word carefully. If you are listening to this, Ji-hai, it means I am gone. I am sorry I will not see you grow up. I am sorry I will miss your graduation, and your first command and all the wonderful things you will do. But I am not sorry for the choices I made. Everything I did because it was right. Not because it was easy or safe, but because it was right. That is the only rule that really matters. Be kind, be brave, help those who need it, and never ever abandon your friends. Do that and you will make me proud. You will make humanity proud. You will change the world. Ji-hai wiped tears from her eyes. She stood up and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there were allies and friends from 100 different worlds, species that had come together because one man decided to answer a distress call, because he showed kindness when he did not have to, because he taught the galaxy that honor mattered more than power. The universe was vast and full of dangers, but it was also full of hope. And in this new galaxy, where species worked together instead of fighting, where justice meant something real, where the weak were protected instead of exploited, humanity had found its place not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as friends, as brothers and sisters to 1,000 different species, as proof that doing the right thing even when it costs everything is always worth it in the end. Ji-hai smiled and touched the window. "I will make you proud, Dad," she whispered. "I promise." And somewhere among the stars, in whatever place heroes go when they fall, Admiral Daewon Kim smiled back. Because he knew she would. He had always known, mankind never overlooks a favor, and when they repay it, their gratitude can shake worlds. That was the lesson the galaxy learned. That was the gift humanity gave. Not technology or weapons or power, but something far more precious: hope.